Before I start my presentation, I just wanted to give you just a short recap of what happened this week. It was quite a busy week with a new First Minister announcing their new cabinet. So I just want to just briefly reflect on that because I think it's quite relevant for all of us. So Mari Gujon remains the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs and Islands, but she has received another portfolio, which is land reform. And we expect her to remain our key portfolio minister. Mari McAllen, as you have heard earlier on today, she has been promoted to be Cabinet Secretary for Net Zero and Just Transition. We have a Cabinet Secretary for Wellbeing Economy, that is a new title. Wellbeing Economy, Fair Work and Energy, Neil Gray. And a junior minister to him is the Minister for Green Skills, Circular Economy and Biodiversity, which is Ms. Lorna Slater. So the First Minister has already articulated priorities, which is tackling the cost of living crisis, childcare reform, achieving net zero, and delivering a well-being economy. And the Butte House agreement that was put in place together with the Green Party remains in place, and the existing program for government, we expect also to be pursued. So clearly, as you will have seen by the fact that Ms. McAllen delivered the introductory speech, she still expects to play a role in this area as she has in her previous post as Minister for Environment. And I think that shows quite clearly that ministers recognize that this area of wild salmon conservation needs the input from a number of portfolio responsibilities, not just one cabinet secretary in isolation. So, and I think we can all take heart that this has been recognized. That's very good. So, as I said, a lot more will become clear over the next week, but we can expect continuity as we go forward in terms of policy, but also in terms of personnel. And just recapping on the first 3 months of this year, there were 3 events that were attended by Ms. McAllen when she attended the screening of the river goods in the Scottish Parliament, where she gave an introductory speech. Ms. Gujon opened the fishing season on the Tweed, and she launched the implementation plan. And Ms. Slater attended the opening of an education facility at the Tweed again early on this month. So that were 3 events already that received the attention of ministers. And of course, Ms. McAllen would have usually been here as well. I should also say that in these events where Alan Wells is often present, that is an opportunity for him and for you through him to actually engage with ministers. And he's well known by ministers, and he's respected, quite challenging ministers in an assertive way, but also being very constructive. So I just wanted to highlight that here as well. Coming now to the main topic of the presentation, just a short reminder why we are here with the conference theme of catchment restoration. This slide gives an overview over the pressures affecting wild salmon, and of course, as we all know, there are very many, and tackling these requires a catchment management approach. And there are a range of bodies and agencies who have responsibility for salmon and migratory fish across this scale in this slide, from the top of the catchment right down to the mouth of the river and indeed reaching into the sea. So the levers for tackling these pressures show that we really need to engage in a very cross-cutting way. And this is where the Wild Salmon Strategy and the implementation plan can help. And I hope that by the end of my presentation, you have a much better understanding how the strategy helps with action on the ground for salmon conservation, because it clearly sets out ministers' commitment commitment in this area. It gathers together a range of actions across the land, the sea, and water into a coherent package, and it provides a focal point for a dialogue across all the different institutions and organizations as policies for salmon conservation are developed. This is another one of those clearly frightening graphs. I don't need to go into detail. Alan has shown this already as well. Just to say that the evidence on the decline was really the catalyst for the focus on salmon within government, with a commitment in the program for government to publish a multi-year Wild Salmon Strategy, and which was then published in January 2020 as a result of a really wide-ranging stakeholder engagement. And in the foreword, Marie Bouchon, our Cabinet Secretary, said quite clearly that there is significant evidence showing that populations of wild Atlantic salmon are at risk, and she calls for a reinvigoration of our collective efforts to ensure a positive future for the species. So quite a clear commitment. The Wild Salmon Strategy itself is a very high-level document, and it establishes a vision and objectives and 5 priority themes for action. So the vision was for salmon populations to flourish and being an example of nature's recovery, and very clear that we will achieve this through application of best practice science, very important, and management. So the five themes in the strategy are firstly improving the condition of rivers and giving salmon free access to cold, clean water. Then there is a theme on managing exploitation, understanding and mitigation pressures in the marine and coastal environment, making positive contributions to international collaboration, and also developing a modernized and fit-for-purpose policy framework. There is a 6th cross-cutting theme, which is building an evidence base through coordinated scientific research and monitoring. Looking at the strategy, it is fair to say that the condition of rivers is core to the strategy, because relative to the wider marine environment, our understanding of pressures and our ability to take action is much greater in freshwater and the nearshore coastal environment. So we're very clear that optimizing the number and quality of healthy and naturally produced salmon smolts leaving the rivers and coastal areas is of key importance for achieving our goal. More fish going out means more fish coming back. So that isn't to say that action is not also taken beyond our immediate waters, and we continue to work with international partners through NASCO and other fora to address marine mortality. Going now to the implementation plan. That's the companion piece to the high-level strategy, and it was published earlier on this year in February. This will guide collective action in all of the areas which are identified in the strategy. There are over 60 actions in total, which are spread across the 5 themes, and they cover the whole life cycle of Atlantic salmon, with, as I said, a focus on river and coastal environment. Critically, it establishes a delivery group which will oversee and direct progress on the delivery of the implementation plan, and they will also, on an ongoing basis, review and adapt the plan. There is also a commitment to set up a scientific advisory board, which aims to harmonize the research and monitoring activities across science organizations and regulators in Scotland. So I've already said that action for salmon conservation spans a wide range of cross-cutting areas. And some of the actions in the implementation plans are designed with salmon as the primary focus. So, for example, example, the commitment to the review, the penalty and enforcement regime for poaching offences. That's primarily designed with salmon in mind. But there are also others which are actually relevant for salmon, but they haven't been set up solely with that focus on salmon, and the River Basin Management Plan is one of the examples of that. They are important, and we will engage in terms of delivery of these targets in the River Basin Management Plan, but we have to bear in mind that they are part of a wider program of work. And we'll hear more about it from SEPA later on today. An example of important action is the commitment that's in the implementation plan on the enhancement of the forestry grant scheme to actually provide better access for those who want to plant trees in riparian areas, so that the grant scheme actually reflects the true cost of that planting. So because of the Wild Salmon Strategy and it being a focus, we were able to engage with colleagues in Scottish Forestry so that they now take the research which was undertaken by Marine Scotland Science to identify those areas where tree planting has the greatest benefit. And Scottish Forestry will now incorporate that information in their grant scheme IT, so that it will help to prioritize with riparian tree planting for the benefit of salmon being a very important criteria. So that's just by way of one example. I want to now talk briefly about the delivery structure, because the delivery is quite important for the delivery of the actions as well. So we have an implementation plan delivery group which will oversee and direct the delivery of all of the actions in the implementation plan. And the members include Fisheries Management Scotland. There are 4 representatives from district salmon fishery boards and the River Tweed Commission. There is a representative from Angling Scotland, from the Atlantic Salmon Trust, SEPA, Nature Scottish Forestry, Environment Link, and of course also Scottish Government. So quite a wide-ranging representation on the delivery board, which is reflecting the cross-cutting input that is required from a range of policy areas. The Scientific Advisory Board, which I have mentioned, will give advice to the delivery group, and the delivery group will also put specific questions and ideas for further research to the Scientific Advisory Board. And I will say a little bit more about that board in a minute. But also to say that there will be task and finish groups, short-term groups, which will be established, which will be commissioned by the delivery group to look at specific areas, for example, further review of the policy framework, or for example, for fish disease. And they will provide advice to the delivery group in their work. An output from the delivery group will be an annual progress report. So it's each year the delivery group will produce a report to actually show for all of you, for all of the stakeholders, what progress has been made in delivering the actions. But another output that comes from the Scientific Advisory Board is an annual salmon stock status report, which will be produced by Marine Scotland Science. So I hope that gives you an overview that you might not necessarily be very enthused about the process, but it is important because the process determines the delivery of the action. And I hope that you can also find yourself represented in this delivery group through the representatives from the district salmon fishery boards, but also Fishery Management Scotland, and also the AST and others. The Cabinet Secretary mentioned the adaptive approach already that we are taking in terms of the delivery of the implementation plan. So the implementation plan, as published, is delivery group will oversee progress of that, but not only in terms of actioning the existing commitments, but also they will look whether there is a change in evidence, a change in policy, or a change in any of the pressures that becomes evidence during the lifetime of the implementation plan. So there will be an appraisal of the actions, whether they still remain relevant. And that may, if necessary, lead to reviewed actions, possibly additional task and finish groups, and possibly also new research. So I think through this dynamic process, we hope to ensure that the IP can adjust and stays relevant as the world around us changes, and the world around us will change inevitably. That is quite clear. Briefly on the Science Advisory Board, there are a range of members that are going to be included in this board, representatives from Nature Scott, CPAR, FMS again, ASTs, the DSFBs, and so on. They will develop a Wild Salmon Science Strategy and liaise with relevant science delivery organizations. They will provide governance and in some cases practical management advice of cross-sector projects, for example on the Laxford and the Devon. And they will collect, of course, closely with the Scottish Fisheries Coordination Centre. And they will also be there to foster international collaboration, which is quite important. Finally, just to step back a little bit from the Wild Salmon Strategy and by way of actually handing over to Lisa as well, I just want to be clear that the Wild Salmon Strategy doesn't exist in isolation. They're part of wider government initiatives which will have a direct impact on our collective work. Ministers have been very clear that they consider tackling the interconnected crisis of climate change and biodiversity loss is a high priority. And this is quite prominent in the Butte House Agreement that is still defining the ongoing government program. So on the very left of this screen, you can see Scotland's overall economic strategy, the National Strategy for Economic Transformation, which explicitly mentions a well-being economy, which means that for the first time, considerations like net zero and the environment are actually not competing with the economy, but are an intrinsic part of a successful economy. You also see here the environment strategy for Scotland and the national planning framework and the Scottish biodiversity, which a strategy which Lisa will elaborate on in a minute. So I think the biodiversity strategy, of course, has great significance as it is a statutory document, and it is significant for us that salmon recovery is quite prominent in this document, and no other species gets as much coverage in this strategy. And I realize that not many of you in the audience today might feel, yay, a strategy is what we need. But all governments have limited resources, and there are increasingly pressures to prioritize. And our work remains high up the agenda and is a priority area for ministers. And they wish to see tangible progress as an example of good stewardship and as a result of nature's recovery. And the Wild Salmon Strategy and the implementation plan are our visible way in. So in closing, I just wanted to say that, of course, the strategy is a response to clear evidence on the declining populations. We require a catchment management approach, and the strategy and evidence gathers together the wide range of actions across land, water, and sea into a coherent package. It provides a focal point for dialogue across institutions and organizations. It is our calling card. If there are discussions about funding criteria, as for example the Nature Restoration Fund and the Marine Scotland Fund are discussed,
this is our calling card. We can say this is a government priority and this is our way in. But also to say the Wild Salmon Strategy and the implementation plan cannot operate in isolation, and they're one part of a wider framework which turned the dial towards net zero and a nature positive Scotland. Thank you very much.